All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here for this virtual volunteer clinic. And you will notice at the moment we are missing Maya because she is currently still at the farm. So we're hoping that she's going to be joining us in just a couple minutes. If not, we're going to wing it and we can still talk about what we had planned to talk about. I'm going to share my screen real quick because we've got a presentation here. All right, can everybody see that? Awesome. Okay. So good morning. Welcome. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Courtney Thompson. I'm part of the Hope's Legacy leadership team. And as we were planning our volunteer clinics for this year, we said, February can be very unpredictable. And here we are in a string of how many days of nasty bad weather. And so we thought it would be a good idea to a virtual clinic. And this is a topic that we've been wanting to talk about. A lot of new volunteers have joined us in the last year. And this is always a really good reminder and refresher for all of us to hear about why we're here doing what we're doing, why we're here, why we serve these wonderful equines, how Hope's Legacy started, and just different things about horse rescue that you may or may not know, and why it's such an important mission, important for what each of us does. So we decided that it'd be fun to put Maya on the hot seat, and maybe that's why she's not with us. Maybe she's doing this on purpose. We'll see. Hopefully not. No, she's doing the important work of feeding this morning. But anyway, we just thought this would be a fun time to get together. And if for some reason she doesn't get to get on, that's okay. We got it covered and we'll be able to still talk about it. But a lot of us may not know each other, and we have some, not just volunteers, but some of our wonderful adopters in here as well. Happy to see Elise and Jennifer this morning, and there's a couple others as well. So if you will post in the chat your name and your what you do at Hope's Legacy, whether you're an adopter, whether you're a Thursday morning feeder, whatever it is, because a lot of the feeding crews don't know each other. So it's fun to see each other's faces, even if it is virtually. So we'll start there. And then also as we're going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. But if you have questions between now and then, feel free to put those in the chat and we'll try and grab those at the end as well. And we are recording this and we'll be able to share it with anybody that didn't make it later and use it for other things. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rosie Beachy, who is our development director. And she's going to talk about some different things on her part.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're really happy that you were able to join us on this beautiful day. I'm going to talk about a few things here. Even though Hope's Legacy is a Virginian organization, we just take horses from within Virginia. We are recognized nationally. And three of the main organizations that have recognized us are the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, which I'm going to be referring to as the TAA. This was a major accomplishment for Hope's Legacy in 2019, and it was a really rigorous process to become accredited. It required us to have policies and procedures in place. The organization TAA came and did a tour of the different locations where we house equines, particularly Castle Rock Farm. They review us as a panel, and through that, only 81 organizations in the United States and Puerto Rico have been accredited. So some of the best practices that they noted for us were the Equine Enrichment program. The number of volunteers that we have 68 fantastic volunteers that work within the organization in a variety of capacities. Our volunteer handbook and our policies and procedures, there were a number of things that they cited us for best practices, and we can all be proud of that. That was a major accomplishment. And we've been accredited for 2 years, so we will go back for reaccreditation in 2022. The second major national organization is the Equus Foundation. And you should all be familiar with the Equus Foundation because your volunteer hours are submitted to them for a quarterly contest that they conduct, and you're eligible to win a pair of Ariat boots, which are really nice. This is the only national organization that focuses solely on equines. And we're one of 171 Guardian locations in North America. And that's an annual certification, so we will be certifying again in 2021. The third location that recognizes us, or that we're posted on anyway, is the GuideStar portal or website that you can go to, and any nonprofit should be listed on GuideStar. It's also known as Candid. They just changed their name. But if you want to see any kind of financial data for Hope's Legacy, you will see it through GuideStar. We're a platinum level organization, which means that we have shared with that portal a lot of information that other people don't share with them. So the number of rescues we take in, the number of adoptions that we make, the number of volunteers we have, volunteer hours, just all kinds of information. Plus our 990 is on there, which is our full annual disclosure to the IRS about how much money we bring in and how much money goes out. So if you're interested in that kind of data, you can view that online at any time. And it's up to date as of 2019.
And Rosie, I'll jump in there. Thanks to GuideStar is how we also get to be listed on Amazon Smile. So if anybody here uses Amazon to make any kind of purchases, make sure that you've signed up for Amazon Smile and choose Hope's Legacy. And we do get a small, it's not much, but it's every little bit counts for every purchase.
That's great. Okay, next slide. A lot of people aren't aware that we also have a board of directors and we have an advisory council. When Maya started Hope's Legacy in 2008, she started from the get-go running Hope's Legacy like a business. And it truly is, I mean, all of our financial data, everything is documented, and we are overseen by a board of directors. Karen Osborne is our chair. Phil Prue is our treasurer and also Maya's mother. John Hesselbart, Carolyn Mackey, and Christy McLean are also board members. And they've joined us from 2008 all the way up through, I think Christy joined us in 2016. And they're a fairly active board. We meet with them quarterly, and of course we're going to be meeting with them virtually until we can meet in person again. So you may see them around Castle Rock Farm. If you do, please thank them. They are also volunteers. And then our advisory council started in 2019. I don't have a more recent picture because of COVID, but we started this council with the thought that we need more representation throughout Virginia, and we also need more help with fundraising ideas and fundraising avenues. So our original council started with Bridget Scanlon, who's up in Northern Virginia, Carolyn Sandridge, who you've probably met out at Castle Rock Farm. Jackie Bell is a lawyer, she's out in Keswick. Allison Dickey has been extremely active through the advisory council. She is the publisher of Albemarle magazine and a recent adopter. And then Courtney Thompson and Angela Doolin, who is with Afton Stables, joined us in 2020 as advisory council members. We are also led by our leadership team, which we also began in 2019. And Maya oversees the leadership team, and she has final say on everything. So we listen to her quite a bit. I started with Hope's Legacy. I'm Rosie Beachy. I started in volunteering in 2016, the very end of 2016, and then became Director of Development in November of 2017. Carolyn Sandridge and Trish Ashley are the founders of our Equine Enrichment program, and that started in 2019. They've also been longtime volunteers and feeders at Castle Rock Farm. Courtney Thompson, I remember the day she started volunteering. It was the day we brought in Desi. May 31st, 2019. And Courtney's been very active. Courtney, Trish, and Carolyn also interface with people who are interested in adopting, introducing people, new potential owners with our residents at Castle Rock Farm and at other locations, other foster farms. So we're really happy to have their help as well. And then Lisa Steward and Betsy Chrysler are our volunteer coordinators. And this is such an important and integral part of the rescue. Lisa and Betsy were very active volunteers. We had Lori Stoll, who was with us for about a year as our volunteer coordinator. And when she decided that she no longer wanted to do that function, Betsy and Lisa stepped up, and it's been terrific having them on board and such a vital part of the team. So that's our leadership team. And I think, is Carolyn going to take over from me? Yeah. Thank you. Oh, and I'll talk about the real crew in charge. We have our mayor of Castle Rock Farm, which is Punk. Donkey and Flat Donkey. I don't know if everybody's seen Flat Donkey, but Courtney arranged to have our 2D version of Donkey last March, done by Innovative Concepts. And because our live donkey couldn't visit people during COVID, we've sent out Flat Donkey, who is sanitized and is available to go many, many places. And he's been a big hit with many of our sponsors and supporters. And then we have Bobby Earl. Bobby Earl, really known as Robert Earl Marks Jr., who oversees and really welcomes all the new horses that come in, male or female. So we are really fortunate to have the real crew in charge. And now I'll hand it over to Carolyn.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carolyn Sandridge. And like Rosie said, I've been volunteering since September of 2017. Trish and I did found the EEP team, and I'm pretty proud of us for what we created and how it's turning out. And it's definitely still a work in progress, but that's a good thing. And I'm also part of the Thursday morning feed crew. I think that the Thursday morning feed crew is the best, but that's just my humble opinion. Oh, and I'm also an adopter of Bobby Earl, who's a sanctuary resident. So I want to talk about our work team. Our work team is Rich Hickey, Dave Harless, Denny Humard, John Satkovich, and Rolf Straub. These fellas take care of everything inside and out and around, above and under at the farm. So we're very fortunate that we have a work crew. They take care of things like keeping the fields bush hogged in the spring and the summer, all the fencing repairs. If there's a last minute fence problem, we can just give Rich a call, and he calls whomever to come in and help him repair that. They also make sure that the roads and the driveway is plowed in this time of the year so that our feeders can have safe access to the farm and get around to do everything that they need to do to get the equines fed and sustained for their shift. Another thing that they do is they maintain our farm equipment. And so I wanted to take a second and just ask everybody to help us help them to maintain the farm equipment. It's really important, as Maya has said, that a lot of our equipment is donated. So the farm and the rescue really don't have the funds to replace what's been donated. But one thing that we can do is, before we even start using a piece of equipment, no matter what it is, a gator, a tractor, chainsaw, weed eater, whatever, give it a once over, make a note if there's something that's not quite right, let Rich know. You can text him on the WhatsApp chat group and he'll take care of it. I know I've messed up things. It wasn't too long after we moved to Castle Rock Farm. I actually broke the water truck and I was upset. And for a hot second, I thought, oh, do I really need to tell anybody? And then the brighter part of my brain took over and said, yes, Carolyn, you do, because this is the only way the horses get water. So I made that phone call. It was hard. I was embarrassed. I felt awful, but I had to let them know so that we could get the repair made. And so Maya and Rich asked me what happened. I told them, and we were able to get it fixed. And again, yes, I was embarrassed, but it happened. It wasn't intentional. It was an accident, but I made that hard, tough step to just call them right away and say, we need to fix this. So we break things, it happens. Let's just let people know so that we can get those repairs made and get things in working order and keep them in working order. And that will help our work crew very much. They do all kinds of things. They hang the feeder buckets in the pastures, and they move the hay bales into the fields. And I think that I would call them our unsung heroes, because rarely do I think we thank them enough. They go out of their way to make sure things are done and ready. Denny was actually very instrumental in getting electric in the medical barn. He and Rich worked really hard on that, and Rolf and John and Dave work hard to keep the roads maintained, moving gravel around. The retaining wall, these guys did. They worked on run-in sheds. So there's a lot that they do. If we didn't have them, I think that we would definitely have a hard row to hoe. So I'm very grateful, and I think that we all should be. And when we see them out and about on the farm, just take a second and say thanks for all that you do for not only the volunteers, but for the equine and for the rescue, because without them, it would be a completely different situation. So our thanks to them, and I'm going to toss it over to Trish.
I am part of the Equine Enrichment program. We just want to tell you a little bit about it. Mostly our goal is to make sure that all the equines are assessed when they come in, looked at, and then the main goal, when all that's done, is to make sure they all get worked, some type of work, whether it's just a walk or just go in the field with them and do some groundwork with them, teach them some manners, if they don't have any, which happens on occasion. We will, of course, check with Maya before we start all this, because she's got all the health information. If they're rideable, we will ride them to test it out. If they're not, then they still need some love and attention and groundwork and to have their brains worked. It makes it a much happier horse if they have their brains worked and get some groundwork. We have horses like Sierra, who just needs to learn how to be caught by somebody besides Alan. And and then we have horses that like Lady and Cheyenne, who Courtney rode Lady this past weekend. And then I think she worked with Cheyenne later. And then we showed them to some adopters who came in. We spent quite a few hours with them. And that I think is going to turn out to be a happy ending. We do love seeing the happy endings, and we love to the horses to get worked and have some attention and love. That's our main goal. Is that good?
That's good. And I'll say too, we mentioned at the beginning about the adoption process, and I know we have some questions about that sometimes. So for those of you not familiar with our adoption process, as Trish said, we do work with those people. They fill out an application on our website that's pretty thorough. We get all their information, where they're planning to keep the horse, whether at their own property or at a stable that they're going to board. We get their vet information. We get an equine professional reference. So if that may be a farrier that they've worked with, a trainer they've worked with, an instructor, whatever it may be. And we have somebody, Featherstein, one of our volunteers, contacts those references and make sure that everything checks out. We often get the question, I don't have a horse right now, so I don't have an equine veterinarian. What do I do? In that case, we ask them for their small animal veterinarian, because the main thing we want to make sure is that they're getting regular care for their animals. So are they getting them immunized when they're supposed to be? Is their vet seeing their dog or cat or whatever regularly for all kinds of preventative and just regular care? So we make sure that those things are happening. And then we kind of talk to them about what they're looking for. So It's about half and half. Sometimes we'll have adopters that see one of our horses on our website or our Facebook page or Instagram, and they reach out about a particular horse. And so they say, I want to meet so-and-so. And we kind of find out what they like about them, what they're looking for, what their situation is. And then we try and determine either via email or phone if we think that's going to be a good fit. And then others will just send an application, say, you know, I'm looking for a companion for my horse because I just lost one, or, you know, we get a lot, I'm looking for a beginner safe horse for my, you know, fill in the blank year-old daughter. We get a lot of those, which is probably our hardest to fill because you guys know from working with these equines, we don't always know what kind of situation they come from. And like Trish said, when they come, you know, if they're an owner surrender, we may know a lot more about them. Typically, we'll know, like Cheyenne's a great example. She came from an older lady who can no longer ride. She's 83. She was riding up until 2 years ago, which is pretty amazing. Like, I want to be riding into my 80s and beyond. So that was pretty cool for her. But we knew about Cheyenne's history. This lady's had her for 11 years. We knew about her. Lady, on the other hand, we knew nothing. Lady came to us in September. She had been with this other family since February of last year. They had, quote unquote, rescued her from a situation. We knew nothing about her prior training. So in those cases, we literally take them, we start to get to know them, we do groundwork with them. And then 9 times out of 10, we just say, well, let's put a saddle and bridle on and see what they do. And a lot of times we can tell just by putting that saddle on, if they've been trained. You know, sometimes they get a little antsy and we're like, oh, maybe not. Other times, like Lady was totally chill. So the very same day that we put a saddle and bridle on her, she was so easygoing, so relaxed. I hopped right on her. She's amazing. Like, so we know that she has some training. We don't always know that. In animal control cases, we may literally know zero about that horse. So it's always interesting to try and figure out, what do they know? What's their comfort level? What's our comfort level? And then we work with those potential adopters or fosters to make sure that they're getting a good match. Because you guys know, we want them to go to a perfect, wonderful home. We get so attached to all of them, and we want to make sure that they're going to a good situation at all times. And we hate to see them come back to us because we didn't take the time to make sure it was a good match. So it's always fun to work with those adopters. And as Trish said, we did have a wonderful family that had reached out specifically about Lady because they saw her on Facebook. And they came out last weekend and got to meet her and Cheyenne. And they are pending both of them. So they'll hopefully be going to their new home in a couple weeks. So pretty exciting. It's a lot of fun to match those and to see our horses go. We always miss them. There have definitely been some ones that have been special to each of us for different reasons. And so we are fully invested. And we have told people no. Carolyn and Trish will know exactly the situation I'm talking about. We've had a couple adopters, potential adopters come, and we just didn't get a good vibe. We didn't like the way they handled the horse. We didn't see that spark between them. And we have told them no. So we definitely do that, and we have full authority to do so. So it's not always, you know, a given that they're going to be able to adopt. So anyway, that's the adoption process. I know some of people have asked questions about that. We should be having Maya here in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Rosie to start, if she doesn't mind.
I wanted to jump in on the equine enrichment program team also, because it's something that I highlight in my grant applications. It's such a unique program. And one of the statistics that we have is that our average horse stay is 202 days, which is quite an expensive stay. What the equine enrichment program team has done for us has been able to help those horses get adopted faster by keeping their minds and bodies engaged, and also giving better information to the potential adopters. The other thing is that it's just a unique program in that it keeps the horses healthier. When you look at our vet costs, this is something that actually impacts the cost of veterinary care. Keeping them engaged helps those horses not get into accidents and things like that. It keeps their behavior in check. and it makes it safer for our volunteers to handle them. So I'm so thankful that you guys started that program, and it's been wonderful. I'm going to talk a little bit about Hope's Legacy's history until Maya gets here. And Courtney, you can wave at me if she jumps on here because I can't see all the screens. But from talking to Maya, she started this organization in 2008 with one donkey. That donkey was rescued and adopted in 2008. So just one donkey. And one of the things that she had been thinking about was animal control. Every county in Virginia has animal control agents, either through the sheriff's office or a standalone agency. And very, very few of them have anywhere to house an at-risk equine. So if they do see, a starving horse, where are they going to put them? There are about 19 rescue organizations in Virginia with varying capacities. We estimate there's about 4,000 at-risk horses in Virginia every year. And there's just not enough capacity to take in all those horses. If we can educate owners, that's a big part of the reason why they're at risk. And animal control, a lot of the agencies do try to work with people and educate them on the proper way to feed an animal, the proper way to care for an animal, how many times they should have the farrier come out, all kinds of things. And people just don't know. I mean, when I was a kid, I told my dad, we could get a horse and we can keep it in the garage. I mean, you do run into people like that. And it's, you really need to be mindful of how expensive it is. As a lot of you on the call know, a lot of you own those horses. So one of the major reasons why Maya wanted to start Hope's Legacy is to provide a safe landing for those animal control horses. Right now with COVID, the vast majority, about 95% of the horses coming in are from owner surrenders, because for financial reasons, for health reasons, people are aging out. They just can't take care of the horses anymore, or the donkeys. So Hope's Legacy gives them an outlet. It's they have very few places to turn to. And so you volunteers give that to these people. In the early years, between 2008 and 2017, Hope's Legacy operated on rented properties. And, the mission is to rescue as many horses as we can, but doing this through rental properties totally disrupted the mission. Between 2008 and 2007, or 2014, excuse me, we took in between 1 and 12 horses every year. Before we purchased Castle Rock Farm, we took in 150 horses. Since we moved on to Castle Rock Farm in March of 2018, we've taken in 205 horses. That's thanks to you, our volunteers. We have 68 active volunteers. It's thanks to our donors, and it's thanks to having this property where we can secure these horses. It's just amazing. One of the biggest turning points in Hope's Legacy's history was Peaceable Farm. And I know some of you have been involved with the rescue ever since 2015. You can watch Maya talk about that epic episode in our history, where she and many other horse organizations tried to get animal control to act on behalf of the horses at Peaceable Farm, which disgustingly was operating as a 501c3 nonprofit. They had 101 dead and dying horses on that property when the sheriff's department stepped in and seized all those animals. Hope's Legacy was a big part of that. We took in 29 horses and donkeys. Donkey was the only donkey who was not expected to survive the night. And here he is 5, 6 years later as our mascot and our ambassador. But it was such a turning point in the history of Hope's Legacy because of the influx of horses. That was October 2015. In February 2016, Hope's Legacy was called into another seizure in Nottoway County, which is southwest of Richmond. And we took in 19 mares from this breeding farm, including Aphrodite. Grace was born at Hope's Legacy. September 1st, 2016. She was the product of Nottoway. And just so many, you hear about these massive seizures, which is, animal control responds to. Hope's Legacy does not seize horses. Animal control does, or the sheriff's department. And we provide a safe landing for those horses. And so those get the news. Last year we had another seizure in Orange County, which they've changed their animal control department. So now those people in Orange County Animal Control are extremely responsive whenever they see any horses in jeopardy. We took in 12, I believe it was, Girardelli, Diamond, Mini Pearl, Leilani. A lot of these horses that we knew and loved last year that were in desperate shape from a woman that didn't believe in feeding hay. So it's just from all different situations. You hear about these really large seizures that get a lot of press and response from donations, which is very, very thankful. But you have the everyday people, people like the Eloise's owner, who was in Nelson County, an older woman who dearly loved that animal. And she just could not, because Eloise got into red maple leaves and needed vet care weekly to recover from that. She just couldn't afford her vet care. And thankfully, Hope's Legacy was able to step in for her. There's hundreds of people like that. So thanks to you guys, our volunteers and donors, we're able to take those horses, donkeys, and mules in. So I'll let
Hey, Rosie,
somebody
I think
else.
we've got Maya now.
Yay.
You have you, Maya?
I'm here. I just don't seem to have video working for some reason.
That's okay. We'll let you take it over from here if you're ready.
Hang on, I'm trying to look and see if I can find. Now it says that it should be working for Zoom. Well, I guess I'll just be the black box.
Whoever's the host, they can actually ask you to share your video, and that will actually turn it on if you need help.
Okay, because it says it's on.
Yeah, it only says stop video.
And Maya, I just gave a quick rundown of the history, just to give you a little background there.
Okay, yeah, I caught you were talking about Peaceable when I came on. All right, so are we at question and answer, or where are we?
Rosie had just started talking about getting ready to move to Castle Rocks. If you want to start from there.
Okay, so we had known for a few years that we needed to purchase property because we had been leasing property and borrowing property, but it seemed like every year or so we ended up needing to move. And let me tell you, moving all of those horses and all of the stuff that we have is a bit of a nightmare. I know a bunch of the volunteers that are with us today helped with that and know what a hassle that was, especially my bucket collection. So we put out word that we were looking because our budget was about $500,000 and there really wasn't anything on the commercial market that was in our price range that was going to really fit our needs. All we were able to find were like 20 and 30 acre parcels for that price. So in one of our newsletters, we said, if anybody knows of a piece of property that's not on the commercial market, that might be in our price range, that would be more like 50 acres, please let us know. And Suzanne Merrill contacted me and said, my parents passed away and there are 6 of us siblings and we all inherited 480 acres. So basically 80 acres per sibling. And some of us want to sell our portion of the land and some want to keep it. Would you like to look at what we're interested in selling? And I knew the general location where the property was. So I said, yes, absolutely. I'd love to go look at it. So Suzanne and her sister Molly and I drove around the property and they kept saying, well, we're thinking we're going to include this in it. We're thinking we're going to include that. And as we're driving around, I'm saying to them, you know, our budget's 500,000. You know, we were looking for about 50 acres. This looks like you're showing me a lot more than 50 acres. And they said, yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. And I don't know if we can quite do 500,000, but let us talk to our brother who also wants to sell a portion, figure out exactly how large a parcel it is and how much we could ask for it. And they came back to me a little while later and said, well, it ends up being 172 acres. And we can't quite do the 500,000, but we could do 680,000. And I went to our board of directors and said, we are never going to find 172 acres in Western Albemarle County for this price ever again. I think we need to try to make this work. And they agreed. So we started looking into various different financing options, and we were not finding any banks that were willing to really finance the property for us. So I was talking to the Merrills about that, and they said, well, why don't we finance it for you guys? And we will finance it with 0% interest, which is just absolutely incredible. They are some of the nicest people I've ever met. And without them, we definitely would not have Castle Rock Farm. So I went back to the board and said, look, this is what they've offered. I think we can do it. And one of the agreements with their doing the 0% financing, though, was that we would pay it off in 3 years. So it was $230,000 down and then $150,000 a year for the next 3 years. And we knew that was going to be a huge challenge, but we felt fairly confident that we could do that. So the board agreed. And to tell you how crazy our board of directors is, none of our board of directors set foot on the property until the day that we closed on the property. They let us purchase the property without any of them actually seeing it, which is pretty cool. So we didn't quite make the 3-year timeline to get paid off, but we will finish paying off the property this year, which is pretty incredible. And then we will own Castle Rock Farm free and clear. Which is, yes, I see Rosie is celebrating.
Yay, we're so excited. That was such an accomplishment. Yes.
It's going to be fantastic because now that it's paid off, well, I haven't written them the checks yet, but once it's paid off, then we can start really moving forward with getting more fencing installed. We can start on the barns that we need. Rosie will have panic attack when I start talking about these things because we have to come up with the money to pay for them still. But we have a long-term plan. We're going to be building multiple barns. There's going to be a quarantine / stallion barn because for some reason, everything these days seems to come in with testicles still attached. We're going to have a larger barn, probably 14 to 18 stalls that's going to be used for feeding horses that don't do well being fed in the field, and for bringing horses in for the farrier, for the vet. We can have all the horses in one centralized location. It will also really help with being able to get our horses used to going in and out of barns. Strange as it sounds, some of our horses come in and they've never set foot in a barn before. And even the med barn isn't quite the same experience for them as actually walking into a barn aisle and being surrounded on all sides by stalls and other horses and things like that. So as a way to get them acclimated for their future life, that will make life a lot easier too. So that's where we are at this point.
You forgot to mention our big indoor riding arena, Carolyn. What's up with that?
I didn't.
We will have
a.
a riding arena. I don't know that it will be covered or indoor anytime soon.
We are going to find this amazing donor who is going to say, you know what Hope's Legacy Equine Rescue needs? They need a covered, oh, no, let's not do covered. Let's do indoor arena that's going to be attached to the barn.
Right.
That way the equines don't have to get wet if it's raining outside.
That's right.
Because
Hey, listen, every time I do a volunteer orientation, if I've done any of your volunteer orientations, you have heard me say, if you know anybody wealthy, we will name the arena or the barn after them. So let them know. Can you talk a little bit, Maya, about Rosie was sharing like the majority of our horses recently because of COVID have come from owner surrender, but can you talk a little bit about working with animal control and kind of the laws of
Sure.
equine rescue?
Yep. So it's a little difficult with horses because horses are still in Virginia considered livestock, which means that their only legal requirements are they need to have food and water. They don't have to have shelter. There aren't really great requirements for hoof care until it becomes something where it's a medical issue. So it has to be really bad. Just having long feet is not grounds for animal control to do anything. It also, that's part of why it makes it so difficult for animal control to be able to go in and seize horses, is because unless the horse is in really bad condition where they are concerned that its life is at risk, if there is any food source and water on the property, animal control really can't do much. There are some folks who want to get horses reclassified as companion animals, but that actually has a whole different set of legal ramifications, and would include things like they wouldn't be allowed to be tied anymore, which doesn't sound like a big deal, because if you think about George, who was tied out instead of in a fence, you'd think, oh yeah, we don't want horses to be tied. But it would also include things like if you were at a horse show, you could not tie your horse to the outside of the trailer if they were classified as companion animals. You couldn't put them in cross ties and things like that. So there are a whole different set of issues with classifying them as companion animals. They almost kind of need to be their own classification somewhere in the middle. But most of the animal control officers that we work with in Virginia, most of them really do the best that they can to work with the laws that there are and to figure out ways to kind of work around the limitations of horses being livestock. So we get a lot of calls from people saying, you know, oh, there's the skinny horse on such and such a road. Could you go do something? And I have to tell them, no, I can't go do anything. You need to contact animal control. And if animal control doesn't seem to be responsive, if they don't want to do anything, then you need to continue calling them and get your friends to call them and just keep putting pressure on them until they do something. Because if animal control gets a report, they do have to go investigate that report. So if you put enough pressure on them and send them out enough, usually we can get stuff done. But we can't step in and do anything until animal control asks us for help. And then what we can do for animal control, and it varies from county to county. So like Orange County, they like their horses, if they seize horses, they like them to stay in Orange County in animal control's custody until the court case has been resolved. So they actually have a couple of foster homes set up in Orange County that they take the horses directly to, and then they will do the rehab and the day-to-day care of those horses until the court case has been resolved. This is a new change since Peaceable Farm, actually. And it came about partially because of Peaceable Farm, because the animal control officers at that case, they were sending horses home with people that they didn't even have phone numbers for. So there are a couple of horses from Peaceable Farm that nobody knows where they ended up, because animal control and the sheriff's department did not keep good records. So now they've decided they want them all to stay in the county until their legal limbo is up, which is kind of nice because for us, because that means by the time the court case is over and they come to us, they're usually almost done with their rehab, like Mabel and Ethel were, and we can go ahead and put them up for adoption pretty quickly. And we don't have to cover the cost of the rehab and all of that stuff. So, and then other counties like Greene County, Shenandoah County and all, they ask us to come in when they are seizing the animals and actually take the animals and hold them for the court case and rehab them ourselves, which is fine. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to be able to assist animal control with that if they don't have a way to do it themselves. But yeah, we cannot investigate cruelty. We cannot seize horses. We cannot do anything with the horses until we have legal custody of them, basically. So if we're holding them for animal control, technically we're not even really supposed to get their feet trimmed or, you know, cut their hair or anything like that without permission, because that is considered altering the evidence. And I know I hate to think of the horses as evidence, but they are. And that's why if we've had cases where they've had really bad feet and we have had to trim them for medical reasons to keep them comfortable, we will actually keep the hoof trimmings so that if we need to show those in court and show how bad the horse's feet were, we can do that. And the same with the Greene County horses, we saved all of those burrs. I don't know that we're going to need those. I think they're going to settle that case. There's going to be a plea deal and we won't have to go testify, which is nice. But we've got it in case we need it. Yes, every single burr. We have gallon Ziploc bags full of burrs still sitting at the volunteer center right now. So, and then there are some counties where we can't get animal control to do much of anything. It's really frustrating. Rockbridge County is one. There is a case there that we've been trying to get animal control to do something about. We know multiple vets have reported this woman to animal control, but she has managed to convince them. She is another rescue, and she has managed to convince them that every skinny horse that's in poor shape is a new horse, even though we've gone back and shown them, you know, Facebook posts where she got the horse 4 months prior to that, and it was actually in better shape when she got it than it is currently. But we have not been able to get them to do anything. So we're actually trying to work with finding somebody on a state level who can put some pressure on animal control for that one. The terrifying thing is we don't know how many horses she has. She has them in multiple locations. Our best guess is she's got about 30 to 40 horses total. And most of them are stallions, because that's what her rescue specializes in. So yeah, we need our stallion barn. Yes, rescue is definitely in quotations on that one. So yeah, that's basically working with animal control. We do what we can to assist them and help in any way we can.
Can you talk about fosters and why they're so important?
Yep. So one of the big things with fosters is it allows us to increase our capacity. You know, we have 45 horses in the rescue currently. And of course, if anybody can count, they know they're not all at Castle Rock Farm. And a lot of the horses that we have in foster, they will be at their foster homes for the rest of their lives. So we've got horses like Rodeo. She is actually Clever Man Sue. She's a 29-year-old off the track thoroughbred. She was one of the Peaceable Farm survivors, and she is fostered by Brooke, and she will be there for the rest of her life. And that's what she needs. She does not need to be shuffled around. She is in a stable place where she knows them. They love her incredibly much. They spoil her absolutely rotten. It's fantastic. And that's what she needs. She just needs to be somewhere and be happy for the end of her life. We have other foster homes like Jamie Hemp. Jamie is great at rehabbing horses. So she gets to foster some of the ones that come in that are in poor condition. She also, her mini collection is up to 7 at this point. All of those came from us. So yeah, she's a great mini foster because I know they'll end up staying. And she's adopted, I've lost track of how many other horses she's adopted from us. But she also likes to take in horses that need some work and some training and stuff like that. So we have some fosters that can do that sort of a thing, which is great because it means that there are fewer horses at Castle Rock Farm that the EEP team needs to deal with and work with. And different people have kind of different specialties. So we kind of tailor what horse goes to what foster home based on what they are going to be able to do best. Like right now, Junior and Bruce are in a foster home that she doesn't know much at all about horses or donkeys, but she follows instructions very well. She's a retired school teacher. So if you give her instructions, she will follow them. And all they needed is a place to hang out for a couple of weeks because they have a pending adoption, but the woman is not quite ready for them. So they just needed to be somewhere with somebody who could follow directions, and it's working out wonderfully. Yeah, so that's our foster homes allow us to basically help a lot more horses than we could if we were just relying on Castle Rock Farm.
Thank you, fosters. We have a few on here today. And then Maya,
Excellent.
too, as you're wrapping up, can you talk about some of the horses that go to training? So we were talking about the EEP and how we assess the horses coming in. Sometimes we know their background, sometimes we don't have a clue, and it's our best guess, like Alex and Elvis literally came out of nowhere, so we knew nothing about them. Can you talk about a few of the trainers that we work with and the process there?
Yep. So yeah, I make the decision on which horses are going to go to training based on what their needs are. You know, the EEP team is fantastic for horses that come in that need refresher courses and stuff like that. But for the horses that need to be basically started from scratch, that haven't had any training or that have serious behavioral issues, those ones it's a lot safer to send to professional trainers. And we've got a network of trainers that we work with, and it's kind of like our foster homes. You know, we've got one trainer, she's excellent, but she's a little more, I can't think of quite the right word without making it sound bad, but she's a little more hard ass with the horses, basically. So like we sent Hollywood to her, and that was perfect because Hollywood would just push and push and push. And he needed somebody to just set their foot down and say, no, you are not doing this. And he didn't need somebody who was going to be nice and sweet about it. He needed somebody who was going to be very firm. And then we have other horses like Cookie Monster. She was scared. She is just absolutely terrified of the world. And that same trainer, it would not have been a good match because it would have just absolutely blown poor old Cookie's mind, and she probably would have jumped whatever fence there was. So she went to a trainer that has a lot more experience with completely unhandled and fearful animals, because Nicola actually specializes in Mustangs. So that was a much better fit. So yeah, I do a little matchmaking with the trainer and the horse to figure out who's going to be a good fit for the specific horse. And also it depends on what it seems like they're going to be good for career-wise afterwards. You know, we've got some trainers who specialize more in Western training. We've got some who specialize more in hunter seat training. And some of them, we've actually had some where we've sent them to one trainer and it has not been a good fit. So we've shifted them to a different trainer. So, yep, we do that. And we spend, Rosie, how much did we spend last year on training? Is it about 15,000?
No, we average about 10,000 a year.
Okay, I thought we were over last year. So yeah, we spend a lot of money on training, and that is with trainers giving us some really nice discounts on their rates. You know, most trainers, they charge about $1,500 a month for training. I think the most expensive trainer that we use, we are only paying $900 a month for her. So they all give us really nice discounts. And I totally get that none of them can really afford to totally give us the training, because that's a lot of time and effort. But the discount is greatly appreciated.
And once we have that nice riding arena, we won't have to send as many out. That'll save us money too.
Yes, the riding arena will help. The riding arena will help. Because yeah, and that's part of the issue with the EEP team being able to work with the horses, is we don't have the facility for it right now. You guys have the round pen, which I have minis in right now. And eventually, soon, we'll have the other round pen, and maybe I can try not to put any critters in it for a while. But yeah, having the riding ring will definitely help. And I see we have a question from Peggy. So yes, all of the vets that we work with either give us a discount or a grant. Every year we've got like Blue Ridge, they just give us a cash grant towards our vet services for the year. But then some of the others like Westwood and all, they just give us a discount. The other thing that a lot of the vet clinics do, which is awesome, is when they go through their trucks and do inventory and all, any meds that they have that are getting ready to expire, that they can't actually sell at that point, they will donate them to us. Because most of the meds, even if they've hit their expiration date, they are still good. You know, we limit how expired we will use, but you know, if stuff is just expired by a couple of months, it's still perfectly functional. They just can't legally sell it. So that saves us a lot of money as well.
What other questions do we
Hope,
have?
what's that?
I would say, what other questions do we have? If y'all want to unmute yourselves and ask.
So I just saw Lauren just asked where the name Hope's Legacy came from. And Hope is actually the name of my off the track thoroughbred that I have. And she was not a rescue, but she was on her way to becoming one, I think. So when I bought her, she had only been off the track for 6 months, and I was her 5th owner in that 6 months. So that kind of shows you how quickly, especially off the track thoroughbreds, can change hands. And, you know, it was the sort of, her farrier bought her off the track and then sold her to a client, and then the client sold her to somebody else who sold her to their farrier, and she was just kind of going from hand to hand to hand. So when I was starting Hope's Legacy, I was trying to come up with a name, and I couldn't think of much that I liked. And then I thought, you know, Hope was kind of my inspiration for starting it, even though she wasn't actually a rescue herself. So I thought, well, I'll try and incorporate her name. And then my other horse's name is Joy. So I thought for a while about having both of their names in there. And then that was just way too cutesy for me. And Joy was definitely not she was not even close to a rescue. She was a homebred baby. So I just decided to go with Hope. And since she was my inspiration, I decided it was going to be her legacy.
And it's
that was where
her
the name
head
came
and the
from.
logo.
And it is her head and the logo. Yep. The woman who designed the logo for us, she was from Texas. And when I was chatting with her about what we were looking for, she asked me the story of the name, and I told her. So she asked me to send her a photo of Hope. And Hope is the one with the Roman nose. So she sent back the logo, and it was absolutely perfect. She got it on the first try too. We didn't do any editing to the logo after the initial one. So that was pretty cool.
Carolyn likes to tell people that the other horse in the logo is Bobby Earl. True or false?
Yes, it is. The woman in Texas was foreshadowing his arrival.
She was pretty impressive. That's
that's why she got it on the first go.
There you go.
That one represents every horse. Betsy, did you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. Maya, can you talk a little bit about the financial obligation of the rescue towards the foster farms? Does that vary foster farm to foster farm? Just
Yep, so it
does
does. So we are kind of standard is with our fosters, we pay vet bills and farrier bills. But we have some fosters that like to cover that themselves, which is great. And then we also have some foster homes that we assist with the cost of feed. It kind of depends on, well, it depends on the foster home and it depends on the needs of the horse. You know, if we have a horse that eats an insane amount of food and is on all sorts of expensive medications, we cover those costs. But then, you know, if we have a horse that, you know, a 50-pound bag of food is going to last them for 2 months because they just get a teeny little handful and all, we ask the foster to cover that. So it kind of depends on the circumstances of the foster and which horse it is, what we cover for them. But the basic is we cover the medical and the farrier.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
I know people probably don't have much to go. Oh, here's a good one.
Yep. So the decision to euthanize is definitely one of the more difficult decisions that we have to make. We always make it with the input of our vet. And we follow the, AAEP, American Association of Equine Practitioners, I think it is, which is basically the governing body for veterinarians in the United States. And they actually have guidelines on when euthanasia is appropriate. And it takes into account things like quality of life, safety for not only the horse, but humans. And the quality of life is really the big one. When the horse, like, so our most recent one was Rocky that we put down, and he came into the rescue with us knowing that he was going to be euthanized in a matter of weeks. Because we actually, when Courtney and I picked him up, we actually stopped at Blue Ridge on the way home and they did a thorough assessment of him, and they came back out and said, look, he's 31 years old. He has no grinding surface on his teeth. He has a heart murmur. He's neurological. You know, he's not a good candidate for rehab. He was going to be somebody who it was going to be pretty much impossible to get that weight back on him. He wasn't a body condition of 1. They said he was about a 1.5 to 2, somewhere in there. So he was still very thin. But they didn't feel like he was in any immediate discomfort where we needed to euthanize him that day. So what they recommended was take him back to the farm and basically just boil the living daylights out of him for
And we did.
a couple of weeks, which we did. He got, 6 to 8 meals a day of soaked alfalfa and soaked senior. And I don't know how many of you guys actually like laid hands on him and felt his spine and all, but he might have gained a couple of pounds while he was with us for those 3 weeks, but he did not gain much. He did not gain weight like a horse like Atlas did, or one of the other ones that we've been able to rehab and get them fairly plump again. And with the heart murmur and being neurological, there was never going to be any improvement. He wasn't going to get better. So it was just a matter of making the last couple of weeks of his life really wonderful and then letting him go before something became critical, before he went into massive heart failure or before the neurological symptoms got so bad that he started falling down. He spent most of his time in that small paddock, so you probably didn't see him walk around. But when he walked, he walked at an angle. The hind end did not follow the front end. If he turned, he would stumble. He he did not really know where his feet were. And that is something that can become pretty dangerous pretty quickly, because, you know, he weighed, what did he weigh? 800 and was
Like
it
right at
800
850, I think.
or something like that? Yeah. So if you were leading him and he stumbled and went down and you weren't paying enough attention, having that horse end up on top of you is going to be a really bad thing. So he had a good life for the last couple of weeks, and he knew he was loved, and that is the important thing.
And I'll-
He loved that alfalfa.
He did love that alfalfa. He would wear that alfalfa very nicely.
I
Yeah.
wanted to say too that sometimes the announcement of a euthanasian euthanizing a horse may seem a little sudden to the feeders group, but that decision in some cases was agonizing for Maya to make, and was a long, often a long decision-making process in conjunction with the vet's input. So none of those decisions are really made unless it's like Rocky, where he comes in. There's always a lot of consideration about, can this horse live a better life?
I think Leilani's a good example of that, because we all fought so hard for her and we thought she was making progress, and we had her for quite a while. But from day one, I think that was probably in the back of all of our minds, knowing what a tough situation, what a tough road she had to climb. And even though she did make some progress with us, it just got to the point where we knew it goes back, like Maya said, quality of life. We knew that she had gotten to a point that was it. That was going to be as good as she ever got. And that's one of those, Melinda was saying, some of them have been much more difficult decisions. And I would say she's a perfect example of that being a tough decision. Sure, we could have probably let her continue, but she would have always struggled. She would have never gotten any better than she got. And she would have always been in pain and discomfort. So I think that's a situation that, yes, that was a difficult decision to make, but it was the right one, even though it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the ones like Leilani, and right now, the two that are kind of up in the air a little bit are Boo and Mac. The founder cases are really tough, because they can seem like they're going in the right direction, and everything seems to be going well. Like, a lot of you probably remember Isabella, and she was doing great for a while. We actually were able to get her barefoot again, and then it was a very sudden thing where all of a sudden her feet basically just gave out on her, and her coffin bones dropped. She didn't have kind of a classic founder where she was obese and everything happened. It was just like her feet had been through so much that they just gave out. Actually, what was his name? The big chestnut. I can't even think of his name right now. Taro. Taro, it was the same thing. You know, his feet were making really good progress. We thought we were going to be okay. And then all of a sudden one day, I can't remember, one of the feeders texted me and said, he is really lame. And I came out and we called the vet, and yeah, his coffin bone had basically dropped through the sole of his foot. And we made the decision right there to euthanize. And that was especially tough because we actually at the same time had to make the decision to euthanize Stella. And we had another name for them, and I'm totally blanking on what their other names were. But we had to make the decision to euthanize her, not because she was in bad shape, but because if you tried to separate her from Taro, she actually became dangerous. She would jump fences, she would run over people. So we knew that if he was gone, she was not going to be safe to handle. So we actually made the decision to let them go together. They're still together in field 2. So yeah, some of the decisions are not not based on physical things. We have had to euthanize a few horses due to behavioral issues. For the folks that were here for Peaceable Farm, we had a mare named Katie, and she was rehabbing beautifully. She was gaining weight, absolutely gorgeous horse, but she was flat out dangerous. I still have a lump on my arm. She bit me sometime around October 23rd of 2015. And I still have a lump in the muscle on my arm from where she actually lifted me off the ground. Right after I had finished telling Linda, be careful, she looks like she could bite occasionally. And guess what? She does. Oh, that's sweet, Melinda. I really liked, despite the fact that she was dangerous, I really liked that horse. And that was.
You must not have ever bit Melinda.
Yeah. No, she didn't. She bit me and she bit Michelle. I remember she got Michelle pretty bad. Yep.
Maya, speaking of euthanizations, can you talk a little bit about our memory garden? Our doctors that are on probably don't know about that. And that's something that, again, I'm very proud of.
Yes. So now that we have Castle Rock Farm, and that is our permanent location, we actually have a memory garden set up at the property, and it's just a nice little kind of a little nook in the woods. There's a bench and a chair that Melinda actually donated. Thank you, Melinda. And every horse that has been through the rescue that has passed away, whether they were in the rescue at the time or if they had been adopted and passed away later, every single horse that has been through the rescue and passed away has a rock that is painted with their name on it. So yeah, it's a nice place to just be able to go and sit and think about the horses and remember the horses, and it's just a lovely spot.
It's a very special, lovely spot.
Beautiful.
Yep.
All right, folks. Well, I guess we'll start to wrap it up there. Not that anybody probably has anywhere to go today since it's so nasty out. But we want to thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Maya. I think this is really special. Like we said at the beginning, this is something we've been wanting to do for a while. Because even though you hear bits and pieces of the story in your orientation and as you're around the farm and things, I think it's really special to hear it from Maya. And I know how much Hope's legacy has meant to me and added to my life, both volunteering and then adopting and fostering. And I'm just grateful. I mean, I think about, I wouldn't know any of you probably if it weren't for Hope's legacy. And I think we can all say, I mean, some of the most special people in my life that I text and message and stuff every single day are in this group. And I'm just grateful for that. And for somebody like Maya who had that heart and saw a need, and it started with one donkey. And here we are 300 and how many horses later or equines later, and growing and able to really help take care of the horses around us. And it's just such a special place. I think we're all grateful for that. And Maya, for you and for the team and all the hard work of everybody that goes into this. And I just think it's important to remind all of us how special it is and how important it is. I know sometimes when you're cleaning up poop, it may not seem like such a big deal, but it really is. And the more equines that we can take care of and you know, also educate. That's part of our mission too. We didn't get to talk about today, the education of future generations and horse owners so that we don't see some of these horrible cases like we've been through. So anyway, just want to thank everybody for
quick
being
interruption.
Here. Yes.
Rosie, when you were doing your history of Hope's legacy, did you tell the kind of full circle moment from our first donkey that we ever took in?
No.
So this is one of these small world things. So the very first donkey that we took in, a friend of mine called and said, my vet's office just called me, and one of their clients, one of their small animal clients, is trying to find somebody to come shoot a donkey because it is bothering her horse. And she wants somebody to come shoot the donkey so that it will leave her horse alone. So the vet's office said, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to find somebody. We'll find somebody to come get the donkey. So my friend called me and I said, great, hitch up your trailer, because we didn't have a trailer at that point. I said, hitch up your trailer, let's go get this donkey. So Lindsay and I go down this gravel road in Albemarle County. And while we're headed there, we call this guy who the vet's office said, hey, this guy wants a donkey, so maybe he'll take the donkey. So I call him and he says, well, yes, I'd like a donkey, but I really want a white donkey, because my dogs are all white, my cows are all white, all of my animals are white. I'm like, okay, that's a little strange. I've never heard of color coordinating your animals, but whatever. And I told him, I said, well, white donkeys are not that common. And we don't know what this one looks like, but we made an arrangement to meet him in an hour at the power substation on 151 so that he could meet this donkey and decide if he wanted it. So Lindsay and I drive down this long driveway and we get to this big open field, and the woman comes out and she says, so there's the donkey. It doesn't let me catch it. And Lindsay and I are thinking, great, it's in this like 100-acre cow field, or 300-acre, I can't remember how big it was. It was huge cow field. So while I'm doing paperwork with the woman, Lindsay starts walking out in the field, and let me step back. As we're driving down the field, the driveway, and see the donkey, we realize it is a white donkey. So Lindsay goes out with a halter to try and catch this donkey. The donkey walks right up to her, basically shoves its head into the halter, and then walks Lindsay to the trailer. And this donkey wanted out of there so bad. So we get the donkey on the trailer and we go meet the guy. He absolutely falls in love with the donkey, names it Snow. So we take it straight to his house. One thing that I realized after we bought Castle Rock Farm was the property that first donkey came from is the farm that is on the other side of field 6. So that barbed wire fence that goes between field 6 and then there are some sheds and a house back there. That is the property that the donkey came from. The folks that own it live in Crozet and they rent it out. So our first animal came from adjoining property. So it is a very small world, and I think we were definitely meant to be at Castle Rock Farm. And that donkey is still guarding the cows. The owner has passed away, but his son has taken over the cows, and that donkey is still doing well. So
I kind of like that.
yep,
color
that's our full
coordinating.
circle moment. Yes, and all of his animals, as far as I know, are still color coordinated.
I like that. I like that. That's good. That's good. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. This was really fun. I'm glad we had decided to do virtual since it's nasty out. So
Yes.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do. We love you all so much, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.